continue our classes on Pan-Africanism and how we grow out of the system, how do we destroy the system, how do we write our own system which challenges the Western narrative. Now take your pen and paper for what I'm going to be saying. It's very important, and tell us when you are watching, which country you are watching us from. It also makes it nicer for us while we do these programs to see the extent of our influence. And while you are watching also, you lose nothing on your page to press the share button or select your friends who are in the Pan-African space, whom you think can benefit from the conversation. So at the bottom there is that share button, and you can actually be able to loop this program live on your page also and grow your own audience, whatever you want to use the material for. I will leave that for your own discretion. Now I want you to take your pens and paper, and we'll thresh out 4 critical components for this afternoon. 4 critical components. And I've always said we need to understand how the system was structured so that we can understand how to either fight the system or parallel the system or destroy the system, so that we can see what are we going to keep and what are we going to throw away. 4 groups of people came into Africa during colonization. 4 groups of people. 1, 2, 3, 4. Group number 1 that came to Africa, which was one of the first groups to come into Africa, was the group of the Menchans. Menchans from India, from China, from Spain, who were interested in trade, sharing and exchanging goods for jewelry, goods for beads, cowrie shells, goods for artifacts and stuff like that. So the first group that you want to look at that came into Africa is the group of what we call the Menchans. These were the traders, the Arabs who came on the monsoon winds into Mozambique, who came into Mombasa, who came into Beira, who came into Durban, into Cape Town, into Gorée Island. But the first group that we can talk about is the group of what we call Menchans. And the next group that came into Africa were the group of the explorers. The explorers will include those who had lots of money in Europe and wanted to learn something more, because since Europe was going through the industrial and academic revolution, people wanted to find out what else is happening out in the world. That's where the group of people such as Charles Darwin walking around the world in archipelagos, rewriting the biology books and etc. You have people such as David Livingstone exploring Africa, discovering places and discovering people and naming those places as if there were no people there. But the group of the explorers, again, they were writing their history, writing their biology and anthropological studies and social inquiries and psychology as foreigners. So they were not writing as locals. They were writing as foreigners according to their own observations. Unfortunately, many and much of their observations have become to formulate the basis of our academic institutions. What we go to school to study now about ourselves is not written by ourselves. It was written by these explorers who say, I find them sitting under a tree. The Africans worship trees. I heard them saying Shumba, Mramgi, Ngwenya, Mukanya, Shoko, Puti. What? The Shonas are animisms, and they believe in animism. They worship animals. I heard them calling God of thunder, God of this. The Africans are pantheistic. They believe in many gods. So you are looking at all these interpretations, and when they find us playing drums and what, and people get into the spirit, oh, they're demon possessed. But when they go to Pentecostal churches and they also go like that, you don't say they are demon possessed. You say they are possessed by the Holy Spirit. Madness of the African, madness. But the second group is that of the explorers, who in their exploration of Africa started to do a rewriting of the narrative for the African, so that history and academia will be informed by their exploration. Group number 3 that came is the group of the missionaries. The missionaries come in to introduce the foreplay to colonialism. They come in to pacify the African. They come in to teach the African how to become civil in a Western way. They come in to tell the Africans how to love their enemies. They come into Africa and tell them how to forgive those that are abusing you. They come into Africa and train the African how to become a good slave. You must become a slave of Jesus. And once you're a slave of Jesus, you are not difficult to become a slave of the white man. They come here to brainwash the African mindset so that the African does not become militant. He does not. They come here to introduce a new concept of life after death, the concept of heaven, concept of angels, concept of hell, concept of demons, the concept of devils and stuff like that. And they are here to change the worldview in a spiritual sense, so that when the African is interacting with waters, he no longer looks at them as clean waters, but as a place that is a residence of evil spirits. Mountains, don't go there to the mountains. There are demons out there. Don't use your traditional medicines. They are from witches. Don't give birth at home. It's unhygienic. Don't eat African foods. They have bacteria. Don't eat your rotten milk. It's not good for you. It's not healthy. It's not hygienic. And so don't dress up like that. God is not happy. He doesn't want to see your breasts. He doesn't want to see your bums, because God is embarrassed when you walk like Africans like this. You must cover up and look like this. So the missionary is actually a tutor preparing the African to become a good servant and a good slave at the workplace. Respect your bosses, respect your masters, respect your lords, respect your slave masters, and honor them as the same way you would honor and worship God. And then the missionary puts them in church, dresses them up differently, tells them to throw away all their wicked things, wicked practices, wicked omens, wicked methodologies, and wicked science, and everything that is African becomes wicked, and everything that is white becomes righteous, holy, civil, acceptable, progressive, civilized. And the last group that comes, as the ground has been prepared by the mentions, the mentions later on grow to become the business owners. They grow to become the insurance companies. They grow to become the main stakeholders in the mining industry. These are the Anglo-Americans. These are the exploiters of land and minerals and resources. These are the mentions. Then the inventors, and not inventors, but the explorers become the owners of the academic institutions. They become the teachers of the communities. So they open up the schools of learning to teach the African more about the European culture rather than more about themselves. Then the missionaries become the owners of the churches and the religious centers, how to worship, how to love God, how to go to heaven, how to lose your land. And when you lose your land, don't worry, you will gain everything when you go to heaven. So don't focus at these things that are on earth. They then own this psychology of the African in terms of managing to drive how the African processes his mind, how the African processes his religion, how the African processes his future, and how he designs himself to be. That becomes the job of the explorers and then the missionaries. And ultimately, when the mercenaries come with weapons, they come with guns, they come with bombs, they come with chariots, they come with police, they come with prisons, they come with soldiers. And by this time, the African is already economically disadvantaged, because the currency at the market is no longer barter system, but a paper system. By the time the African is met by the mercenary, the African is already disenfranchised in terms of his information and knowledge. He does not have a soul. He is barbarian and he is evil and he is uneducated and uncivilized. Over and above that, by the time the African comes, he is no longer looking at fighting. The African is actually waiting to go to heaven and be taken up in the clouds. And then by the mercenaries, then they set up the government infrastructure. They set up the system which has taxation, which has education, which has medical attention, which has militaries, which has police stations, which has prisons, and the courts of justice. So these four main divisions of the colonial people who came to Africa must be understood by the African. Because if you don't understand how the system was designed, is designed around your own progress, you may think that you are developing and you are running a reformation or you are running a revolution as Africans, only to discover that what you might call a revolution, you are running in circles and just swapping hyenas with foxes. Because the system ain't changing. The explorer's information remains the same. That's why we need a revolution in terms of our education and our history. The missionary has not changed. That's why we need to decolonize God, decolonize the Bible, decolonize these whole concepts of Jesus and salvation and occultic behaviors